In my 20 years as department chair, I've seen that the best teams are those that build an inclusive culture, teams that foster diversity and that work towards a shared goal of equity.
It's actually kind of an interesting question to ask a person of color, kind of when did they come into DEI work, because I think principles and concepts within DEI we're thinking about almost all the time, especially in academic medicine, in academic surgery. We are often the only ones in the room.
My journey into DEI work really starts probably when I applied to medical school. I chose University of Chicago because I knew I would be working with patients that are underrepresented, underserved, and under-resourced.
But many years ago, I did a master's in public health. I think that helps me think about the healthcare for my patients in a broader sense, a public health sense.
It has now been officialized into programs that I started participating in, something that made me feel included, and then I found a path to integrate that into my work.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the sacrifices of other people who are doing this work, and also those who came long before me, who endured much more strife and hard times in order for me to have the opportunities I've been afforded to today. That's really where my personal journey starts with DEI.
So Doctors Dorsey and Matthews are definitely leading the charge, and through leading the charge, they're producing transformative work that will undoubtedly enhance the future of surgery.
I think we've been doing DEI work for a long time without really applying that label to it. We've been looking within our pediatric trauma center, for example, as public health care and an opportunity to provide more equitable and inclusive care to all of our patients on a daily basis.
I don't view it as a separate activity. Now I am going to do DEI efforts, and now I'm going to go into research. It should be, and for me, it is more and more an integrated activity, which comes through in hiring diverse people, mentoring, and collaborating with groups of people who are diverse and listening to their ideas, integrating them into projects. I think that this really helps our research differentiate us from other research groups.
Our goal in the Department of Surgery has been to embed the work of creating this diverse and inclusive environment into the normal processes and procedures and the everyday operations of what we do.
What we realized with our patients is that a lot of them, you can do all the steps of the operation perfectly, you can make all the decisions perfectly, but the real complication is the access to care, that they don't have insurance, or they had some sort of implicit bias when they presented to care and didn't present or say the symptoms that we read about in textbooks, so they didn't go to an operation soon enough. I think it's really neat that our department has added that as part of our core part of Morbidity and Mortality Conference, and recognized that access to care and bias is actually a contributor to surgical outcome complications.
One of the initiatives that stick out to me is the Black Men in White Coats event. It's such an incredible documentary that touches on the challenges that Black men face in society, just trying to conquer their dreams. What we did was we created a discussion around that. We had faculty on the call, we had staff on the call. You had people who, never thought about race the way that some people did. And I think it sparked so many different discussions outside of that one discussion. I can recall having tons of talks with my coworkers, and it just sort of allowed them to feel comfortable and let them know that the Department of Surgery provides a safe space for discovery and for education.
Some of the initiatives that I'm most excited to be a part of in the Department of Surgery right now for diversity, equity, inclusion is the new podcast that was started by Jen Venice-Warren, where we get to highlight and talk about some of the disparities that exist in some of the specialties that we are fortunate enough as residents to rotate in, to kind of highlight for the community as well as my co-residents and faculty, some of the disparities that exist in the patient populations that we take care of.
An initiative I'm particularly proud of is our Alcove project, which is this beautiful hall display in the middle of our department that focuses on the surgical history of care on the south side of Chicago. And it kind of over the course of a few months evolved into this really, really beautiful and rich display.
So one way we're trying to improve access for patients is to reduce the burden on the patient and the family to come back and see us here in clinic. The idea is that if they can come to a multidisciplinary clinic and see, say, the trauma surgeon, a violence recovery specialist, or social work, all in the same visit, it greatly reduces the burden for the patient, the family. We'll be able to reduce barriers to access to care that currently exist for many of these families.
When you think about where we are, we're in Chicago, we're on the south side of Chicago. The majority of our patients are Black, and so it becomes incredibly important to have a workforce that somewhat mirrors the patients that we're taking care of. So diversity definitely matters within surgery.
I'm really excited about this year's annual report because our surgical community will get a chance to see who we are as a department. We have such a diverse group of brilliant thinkers, of progressive thinkers and innovators, and I'm so excited to share this annual report with everyone.
We have a tripartite mission in a department of surgery. We provide clinical care, we do research, and we train the next generation. All of those goals require us to build an environment in which our colleagues can work, our trainees can study and learn, and our patients can receive the kind of care that they deserve. All of that requires diversity and inclusion in order to be successful.
There is no crystal staircase that leads us to all the answers. So, as a department, we will continue to infuse diversity and inclusion in everything that we do, in our everyday practices, in our everyday operations, in our everyday lives. In doing that, I do believe that we are investing in the future of surgery.